Well, hey everybody, it's Sandy and welcome back to my channel dedicated to helping you advocate for your own health one topic at a time. So guys, today I want to start a new conversation on my channel, which I'm hoping will become a series of conversations, and that would be about the thyroid. Yeah, so I've said before on my channel that I have some autoimmune issues, and one of them would be my thyroid. I know that a lot of people who converse in the Facebook group and talk to me through the comment section in my videos have talked about their struggles with autoimmune diseases. If you have an autoimmune disease, it's a pretty high likelihood that you have a thyroid problem. I'm going to talk today about how I treat my thyroid. I do take medication, but in addition to that, I also incorporate several integrative modalities, including diet and supplements, and I'm going to talk about those today. So this would be a good place for me to insert my usual disclaimer, which is that I'm not giving any individual medical advice on this channel. Nothing that I say should be deemed a substitute for the advice of your own qualified practitioner. And certainly if you're looking at making some changes, discuss with your own qualified practitioner. I know the question is going to come up, can I avoid going on thyroid medication if I do these things? I don't want to discourage you, but really I don't think so. I think that's unrealistic. You know, I tried that way back when. I don't know why, because once I got on thyroid replacement, it just made so many other things in my life better. I felt much healthier. They can pull the thyroid medication out of my cold, dead hands. Again, I take a combination of both T4 and T3, and I am planning to do a video on that as well. Most thyroid issues are autoimmune if you are hypothyroid. And for the purpose of this video, I'm really only going to be focusing on the hypothyroid. Now, if you have Hashimoto's disease, that means that in your blood they have detected specific antibodies. Now, even if autoantibodies haven't been detected in your blood draws, that doesn't mean your hypothyroid is not of autoimmune nature. Most hypothyroid is an autoimmune condition. It's usually connected with other autoimmune diseases. There are some cases where hypothyroidism is caused not by something autoimmune, but they are very rare, like genetic defects. Could be from surgery. If you have your thyroid gland removed, obviously you're going to be hypothyroid and have to be supplemented. So for the purpose of this video, I'm really going to focus on the autoimmune hypothyroid. And I happen to take a combination of T4 and T3. That is a whole other conversation and video in and of itself, and I am planning to do a video soon about why I chose to incorporate T3 into my regimen. Most people are on what's called T4 monotherapy, which means you're given only T4. That's Synthroid, L-thyroxine. I think there are some other generic names. Your body does convert T4 into T3. So theoretically, if you give enough T4, people will have enough T3 because they will convert on their own. The T3 is the active hormone. T4 is an inactive hormone. The T3 is what can exert the metabolic effect at all the different end sites. And I'm going to leave that all for the other video when I talk about T4 and T3 and how we do the testing and whatnot. But for today, I'm going to talk about my integrative measures. Some of the things that I use to integrate are supplements, and anything that I mention or recommend, I'm going to link down below in the description box. Those will not be affiliate links. So again, when it comes to people's health and well-being, things like supplements are very expensive, and I don't want the room for bias that a commission would create. So those are not affiliate links. Things that are a little less about people's safety, health, well-being, but more about feel-good well-being and things like that, I have put my toe in the water and have a few affiliate links down in my description boxes. They will be clearly marked. So I'll start out with the supplements that I take, and really none of these supplements is specifically for the thyroid. It's more about my overall health, and they are anti-inflammatory, but these do have a particular role when it comes to the thyroid. So the first one I want to talk about is vitamin D. I did a video a while back on vitamin D. I will link that video here. Vitamin D obviously has just so many far-reaching health benefits that have to do with your immunity, autoimmunity. Vitamin D deficiency tends to be more rampant in people with autoimmune disease. I'm not going to get all into the weeds of whether to take vitamin D and how much to take, because there is a huge range of what people are comfortable taking. But I will say that it is so easy to check your vitamin D level with a blood test. So talk to your provider, decide where you want your number. There's a large range of normal. I belong to that school that believes that the higher vitamin D level is better. There are people that have different opinions. It seems that for certain conditions, it's better if the vitamin D isn't really high, and for other conditions it is. I like mine to be at least around 40, and I'm happier when it's something like 60. Again, talk to your own provider about that. Decide where you want your vitamin D level and have it tested. When it comes to what to use to supplement the vitamin D, I have used Seeking Health for many years with excellent results. My D is a little bit low. I add a little bit more of this, it goes up. If I back off on this, it goes down. I've used other vitamin D supplements in the past. I'm sure there are other good ones. Before I found the Seeking Health brand, I found that the ones I had tried before gave me kind of more random results. So it turns out that consumer labs, who I've mentioned on this channel in the past, they do a lot of testing of integrative health modalities like vitamin supplements and things. And recently they have tested vitamin D products, including Seeking Health, and this came out to be one of the top products. I was so happy to see that. So Seeking Health is a high dose. It is 2,000 IUs per one drop, and you just put that one drop onto your tongue and let it sit there until, you'll just forget about it at some point. That is a high dose per drop. You really have to look at the labels. If you decide to look at a different vitamin D, they might say that per serving it's 2,000, but that might be like 20 drops or something. So you have to think about how many you're going to get out of this one vial. 2,000 IUs per drop is great. It means I have a lot of servings in this vial. I take 2,000 a day. Certainly if you feel like 2,000 is too much to take in a day and you still want to try this product, you can take it every other day. So I'll link this down in the description box. The second thing I'd supplement is zinc. Just like vitamin D, zinc is also great for immunity. I have been taking zinc for a long time. It happens to speak to the thyroid, particularly because people with hypothyroid might have difficulty absorbing enough zinc, and so you get a zinc deficiency. And zinc also somehow informs the usage of the T4 and the T3 hormones. Now, it is important that if you're going to take zinc, you also take copper, because taking too much zinc can lead to a copper deficiency, which would be dangerous. So I take Solar Rays zinc copper supplement. I take this once a day. It is 50 milligrams of zinc to 2 milligrams of copper, which is perfect. The last thing I take in the way of supplements that, again, is for my overall greater health, but it does speak to the thyroid, is my vitamin C. I think we all know by now that vitamin C is a powerful antioxidant. It contributes in so many different ways to overall health, including immune health. But there have been studies that have shown that people with hypothyroid and some kind of GI deficiency, so that could be like a celiac disease, leaky gut, whatever it might be, in those people, some studies have shown that vitamin C does improve T4, T3, and TSH. As far as which vitamin C to take, there are a lot of them out there. I've shown this one before. I take Livon lipospheric vitamin C. I'm just going to show you, these come in individual packets. This is 1,000 milligrams or 1 gram of vitamin C. You tear this open, there's some gel, you dump it into like a tiny little sip of water, like in a Dixie cup, and drink the whole thing in one swig. Now, if you don't want to purchase this one because it is admittedly pretty expensive, I would purchase a vitamin C that is called liposomal. There are several of them out there. What the lipo means is fat, and it means the vitamin C is fat encapsulated, and studies have shown that fat encapsulated vitamin C is better absorbed, which makes really good common sense because it's fat encapsulated. Fat's absorbed through membranes. Water soluble molecules are a little more difficult to absorb, so particularly if you have your GI issues, which a lot of people with hypothyroid have, you might have some malabsorption issues. You definitely want to take a vitamin C supplement that is somehow fat encapsulated and therefore will be easier to absorb. The vitamin D I just talked about is, of course, a fat. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, and the only ingredient in Seeking Health's vitamin D is olive oil. Another important thing to incorporate for thyroid health is selenium, but I would not take selenium in the form of a supplement. Selenium is really easy to get with different foods, but I'll tell you the one food that I have that's king, I actually hate it, but Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts are loaded with selenium, so if you eat 2 Brazil nuts a day, you're good. Selenium will help the body convert T4 to T3 more efficiently and therefore use thyroid hormone efficiently. I read that you can also get selenium from eggs, particularly from sardines, no thank you, and even legumes, but really it's just so easy. I have a pack of Brazil nuts in my freezer. I buy organic Brazil nuts. I take 2 of them out every day and eat them. I hate them. The rest of the items that I'm going to mention have to do with inflammation, so they speak to living an anti-inflammatory life. And the very first thing is gluten goes. First of all, I know that gluten is everywhere, and the notion of giving up gluten if you don't feel you have a problem with it is very off-putting to some people, but I've got to say, I think it should go. I am of the belief that gluten is an inflammatory substance. Now, if you don't have any problem with gluten, you don't have a hypothyroid issue or whatever, I don't know why you'd be watching this video. Maybe having some gluten some of the time, just like we all have sometimes something that's not particularly good for us. It wasn't too long ago that the prevailing thought was that you don't need to get rid of gluten unless you're celiac. And I think now it's pretty widely accepted that gluten is inflammatory, and there are plenty of people that have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. But if you have a thyroid issue, first of all, you are very likely to become celiac. They are linked, especially if you have been diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And even if you don't need something as inflammatory as gluten. Besides that gluten is inflammatory, there's a reason that in particular it is dangerous to people with thyroid issues. So there's a protein sequence in the gluten structure that looks a lot like the protein sequence on the thyroid. They are so similar that sometimes the body erroneously mistakes one for the other. So if you have gluten and that starts an inflammatory process, it is possible that your body will react to that and make autoantibodies against the thyroid. I have done a video in the past where I've talked about getting rid of gluten. I can talk more about that if you guys like. The next tip kind of furthers that getting rid of gluten, and that is to try to adopt an anti-inflammatory diet all the way around. In particular, I recommend that you think about good fats. One of the risks when you have hypothyroid is that your lipid profile is going to get worse. So you're going to raise the LDL cholesterol, which is the bad one. So I think we always want to be watching for that. I haven't had that problem. I think either I am genetically predisposed to having an excellent lipid profile. It might also be the things I eat because I have eaten really a Mediterranean diet and eaten good fats since long before that was in fashion. So some of the things you're going to want to incorporate are olive oil. It should be an extra virgin olive oil. I think I've mentioned before, olive oils have also been tested by consumer labs. Yeah, so consumer labs charges you a whole lot of money to see their testing results, but I'm happy to announce what I see and what's pertinent right here on my channel. One of the olive oils that they tested that was excellent is Costco's organic extra virgin olive oil. I thought that was so great. I had been using a Whole Foods 365 brand. It didn't test nearly as well, so I have switched to the Costco one. Incorporate extra virgin olive oil, incorporate avocados. Avocado oil is an excellent oil to use because it can take high heat. Something like extra virgin olive oil, that's what you want to use for salad dressings and things on the table. You're going to have that raw. When it comes to cooking, you want to have something that's going to be able to tolerate the high heat without burning, and that would be an avocado oil. If anybody's interested in a video on how I incorporate all these good fats and some of the recipes that I've created, just tell me in the comments section. The next one's a little bit controversial when it comes to the thyroid, but I drink a cup of matcha green tea every morning. So that is in general a largely anti-inflammatory substance to have. I have it like before I do some meditation. I think it really helps me to kind of hone in and concentrate. I didn't start taking it for that reason. I started taking it a while back because of its anti-inflammatory effects. When you have regular green tea and you're dropping a bag into some water, you're not really going to be able to ingest enough of the EGCG, which is predominantly the antioxidant that you're looking for in these green teas. So when you have matcha green tea, matcha is actually beat up pulverized leaves of green tea. So it has many times more of the antioxidant in it per serving. I don't like it. I just go ahead and drink it. And when you choose a matcha green tea, you're going to want to find one, I think, from Japan. I don't want to find anything sourced from China. And that's really the reason I don't recommend a supplement like green tea supplements, because you'd really have to find out where the source is. And in Japan, there are certain areas that it should come from. If anybody wants me to talk more about that, I will. I use a brand called Go Matcha, and I use the organic ceremonial green tea. My next point is about iodine. Now, some people say, oh, take iodine supplement iodine if you have a thyroid problem. It is true that an iodine deficiency can contribute to hypothyroidism, but that is almost non-existent in the developed world. I don't recommend taking any kind of iodine supplementation for the thyroid. You should be using some sort of iodized salt. I use an iodized sea salt, and that's my regular salt that I use for cooking. Some salts, like the kind you would use if you're going to ferment things, are not iodized. So you just want to look at the label and see which one you're using for cooking and which one you're using for other things. There's also plenty of iodine in fish, dairy, and eggs and things like that. If you live in a developed country, the chance that you have iodine deficiency is really almost nil. Now, there are finally some foods called Goitrogens, which means that they are harmful or interfere with the function of the thyroid. Some of this is going to sound like bad news, but hang in there until I'm done talking about these because there's some very good news at the end. So some of these foods include things like cruciferous vegetables like kale, broccoli, cabbage. Don't worry, I'm going to get there. Foods like millet, peanuts, sweet potatoes, peaches, cassava, strawberries, and finally soy. So in theory, these are all goitrogenic and should be avoided. Not to worry. There's only one in this list that seems to be a problem, cooked or not. Most of the rest of these, especially vegetables like cruciferous vegetables, it seems that when they're cooked, they're fine. Now, that doesn't mean I don't ever eat raw kale in a salad. Yeah, occasionally I do. And occasionally I like some slaw, so that's raw cabbage. I just kind of keep it in the back of my head. It's not something I'm going to have every single day, 3 times a day for a week or something like that. But I have it. I haven't noticed any difference in my thyroid hormones. It seems that cooking these, however, is better. So if you like cooked Brussels sprouts, kale, things like the cruciferous vegetables, yeah, have them cooked. Probably probably if you also have gut issues, which so many of us do, it's easier to absorb a lot of the nutrients from foods when they're cooked. And I'm going to go on a limb here and tell you that my common sense says that fermenting also makes these okay. So sauerkraut, fermented cabbage, I think there's nothing better for us than fermented foods. So not to worry, some of this is theoretical, except for the rare condition where somebody has iodine deficiency, which again is not for the developed world. Most of these foods are not going to be a problem. Now, the one that is millet. And it's kind of unfortunate, but yeah, it doesn't seem to matter whether it's cooked or not cooked. Millet seems to be goitrogenic. So do I eat no millet at all in my diet? Well, no, I actually eat a little bit because occasionally I want a piece of bread or toast, and I really find it hard to find a bread that has other nutritious ingredients and is gluten-free. That doesn't have any millet. Now I can certainly find some, they're just going to be plain old white rice flour, brown rice flour, and I really don't want something like that. The short list of gluten-free breads that I'll eat, most of them have a little bit of millet in them, but I do get some of that in my diet once in a great while. And finally, I would avoid processed foods. Do I ever eat processed foods? Yes, I do. I live in the real world. But I think that this is one of those things that just globally speaks to overall health, whether you have a thyroid problem or not. And I think we're learning that the less we eat of processed foods, the better off we are. So how do you know if something is a processed food? What does that mean? I think that the more you stick with foods that don't have ingredients, the less you have to worry about that. So foods like almonds, chicken, eggs, they don't have ingredients. They're just whole foods. They're not processed. So the more you can stick to those kinds of things in your diet, I think the better off you're going to feel. And so that's my list of integrative, both supplements and other modalities that I do for my thyroid. And some of them, of course, serve me in other ways as well. So let me know what you guys are doing. If you have any other suggestions, or if you incorporate some of these ideas and you find that they are helpful, let me know if you have any questions. And until next time, be well. Bye-bye.